So good afternoon, everyone. It's great seeing everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Dr. Romero-Leggett will be joining us shortly. She's just concluding another meeting. As you all know, this is the IEC meeting on August 31st, 2021. And for those I haven't met yet, my name is JP Sanchez. I serve as the Executive Associate Vice Chancellor for DI, the Office of DI at HSC. We're going to start off, as you know, Ali will be placing the agenda in the chat, just in case it was not received by everyone through email. As you can see before us, we're going to start with our land acknowledgement. I'm just going to read it out. Founded in 1889, the University of New Mexico sits on the traditional homelands of the Pueblo of Sandia, the original peoples of New Mexico. Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, have deep connections to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our committed relationship to Indigenous peoples. We gratefully recognize our history. With that, I also want to encourage you to continue to put, if you haven't already set up your to be listed in your window, and also please include your pronouns so that we can be reminded. Amongst the announcements, and then I'm going to ask you all to also share any announcements or updates. We want to congratulate Dr. Krista Salazar for now serving as the Director of DI at the School of Pharmacy. So congratulations, Dr. Salazar. And I just want to take a moment and ask you to share any words if you're on with us today. Dr. Salazar. Okay, so she might be joining us.
And I'd like to, Dr. Sanchez as well, and greetings to everybody. I'd also like to just make mention, Dr. Salazar is also now the director for, both the director for DEI in the College of Pharmacy, as well as the DEI executive officer. So we're, welcoming her to the ranks there. She, as you all know, she was our at-large leader for College of Pharmacy before. So just very thrilled to again welcome her in a different role. She's been part of this, and also to thank and give our congratulations as well, and deep appreciation to Dr. Crystal Ward, who served as the inaugural DEI Executive Officer for College of Pharmacy, and her leadership and advocacy and commitment to us as well. So really just want to thank her so much, and we'll be getting an electronic card out as well for people to add to that, all of you to offer any sentiments that you would like to as well. So thank you for that. All right, and I believe I didn't see Dr. Salazar here. I don't believe yet. Okay. Great. Well, we will continue, and thank you, Dr. Sanchez, for starting us off as I transitioned over here. So thank you very much. We have our approval of our minutes. They were sent on the 13th for any edits, which we had not received any edits. So if we could have a motion and a second to approve those minutes, please.
I'll second, or I'll do the first motion, whatever needs to be done first.
So
Second.
you move to approve the minutes, Dr. Gonzalez. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ingrid. We will go ahead and any further discussion, comments, questions? And I think we'll do this again in the chat, because that's the only way with all of the screen. It's difficult to kind of keep track there. So if you, all those in favor, please say so in the chat. And if we have any abstentions or any who are not in favor, thank you. All right, so we're gonna, and thank you, Ali, for helping us again stay very well organized. I will turn it back over to Dr. Sanchez for a review, reminder of the historical report and a review of the timeline before we go into our committee reports. And actually, Dr. Sanchez, before that, I'm sorry, I think you had asked as well, are there other announcements or things that people would like to share at this point in our acknowledgement time here? Please speak up if there is.
Dr. Romero-Leggett, you had taken time this morning to acknowledge Dr. Barbara Dameron for her commitment as our government relations lead at the University of New Mexico, and we're all truly grateful to her for her commitment to our various diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives throughout the years.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Roybal. She's been an amazing leader, and we're of course thrilled that she'll be returning full-time back to College of Nursing. I believe she was talking about writing a book and doing some more of her research projects and education and teaching. So really very excited for her, and just very much appreciate what she's done for all of us as an institution, but for our communities and the people of New Mexico. So yes, thank you, Dr. Roybal, for that reminder and acknowledgement. All right, Dr. Sanchez, turn it over to you on the historical report.
Great, thank you. So I think all of you are pretty much aware of the purpose and the intent of the historical report. Ali just shared a Word document in the chat box, which gives you a reminder of a timeline for generating the report. Once again, thank you to all the committee members for your hard work. Looking forward to seeing the first draft of your section by tomorrow, due September 1st. Then I'll be able to look through that, schedule some meetings with you, and follow up on some revisions and recommendations so that you can work with your committee members and submit a second draft of your section by October 1st. That is probably the biggest reminder I just want to mention. Separately, I also wanted to share that over the next couple of weeks, you're gonna start seeing probably a lot of emails and communications around learner assessment, how we are systematically assessing all of our learners, and in particular, our learners who are historically underrepresented in medicine. More to come on that, but know that we're here to answer any of your questions. Feel free to contact myself and Dr. Romero-Leggett if you have any questions around upcoming discussions around learner assessment. Examples of assessment include standardized exams, such as the MCAT, DAT, GRE, OSCO, how we assess our students when they're rotating on the floors or taking care of patients, or when we do OSCEs, observed standardized clinical evaluations. So with that, I believe I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Romero-Leggett.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. Any comments or questions here before we move into our committee reports?
This is Carolyn. Let me get my video on. So, John, are you asking that we provide you with, because we have different assessments going on in nursing. Like we have something called the HESI exam that all of our students take. We do OSCEs, we do have other. Are you asking us to give you some of that, or could you expand a little bit?
No, I'm not asking for any materials, how you actively assess your students. It's just an announcement that over the next couple of weeks, I think there's going to be a lot of emails and communications around learner assessment. So no need to submit anything except for your wonderful outlines by tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Dr. Montoya and Dr. Sanchez. Okay, committee reports, and we are going to start with Culture and Climate Committee. I'll turn it over to you all. We have Dr. Crandall and Dr. Salazar had agreed to also co-chair as well.
Yeah,
And we want to thank Stephanie.
Yeah, I want to thank Stephanie. Stephanie was on had to step down from being co-chair, and so since the last meeting, Dr. Salazar has agreed to serve as co-chair. So we're a bit behind in that I was on vacation for about a month and missed a meeting. So we have had things move forward though, in terms of the climate survey. So we are working with the leadership at HSC, and essentially we're working with Dr. Zadonis and to identify monies to pursue the climate survey.
Not present.
I don't know, Dr. Romero-Leggett, if you have any updates since we last talked about that.
Well, right now with Dr. Rankin, and again, I appreciate the IEC's approval and support in moving forward with the climate survey for that. We have a revised timeline. As you know, Dr. Crandall saying we've been moved further down the queue because they've moved forward with institutions who are ready to go. And right now we do not have the approval funding, but we're waiting to hear back from Dr. Zidonis and the EVP's office on that. But it looks like if we were to move forward and be able to, get it through the whole proposal process and everything now here timely, they would come in now sometime in the fall to start working with us. We'd be putting together a climate survey working group, very diverse group from across the institution and community. And that group would work with theirs to start looking at the focus groups to then launch those somewhere between the new year and spring, depending what we get done before the holidays. But then at this point in time, it's looking like the launch of the actual survey, because remember, Dr. Crandall, maybe you can talk a little bit about why, we were doing about the focus groups, but it looks like we would probably launch next year, early fall, if we follow this timeline now.
Yeah.
But do you want to just speak a little bit about why and just remind people with the focus groups and why this is important?
So yeah, just as a reminder, we over the past, 18 months, 24 months, we looked at the history of climate surveys at the institution. We looked at the various vendors and products that were available to us. And we selected or made a recommendation to select Rankin and Associates. And that was what we presented back in, I think it was June. And then we decided to move forward with Rankin. So Sue Rankin has put together a comprehensive proposal to do a comprehensive climate survey on North Campus. And the process is pretty extensive. Now it begins with us identifying a core group of individuals who represent the various entities and who are essentially our stakeholders on our campus, to start to develop some of the issues, the questions, the various dimensions of the climate survey that we would like to collect. As we move forward with that, they will actually start to form some, based on their experience and the things that we bring forward to them as issues, we'll conduct a series of focus groups on campus to really start to flesh out these issues and to be able to develop more comprehensive or better understood tools that would be used to develop the actual climate survey that would be delivered. And this is where I'm getting a little confused. I think it's going to be the fall of 2022. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
I think we're looking at basically from now for the next couple of months, developing sort of the team that will be working with Rankin and Associates to push the climate survey forward, they would then come and do focus groups in the winter, early spring, and then based on that information, then would develop a climate survey that would be deployed in the fall of 2022. So it does take a fair amount of time. One thing that Dr. Rankin would say is that they make suggestions about things to do immediately. So it's not like we're going to be sitting around waiting for some product, you know, in 2023 or something. She will get the information, the findings from the focus group, and we'll share them back to us. And then we can take that information and make recommendations for change or action based on the focus group information. So it is a bit more of a dynamic process. So we are looking to really have the climate group help to work to inform that. So if we, I assume we can have others as well. I guess it's going to depend on who we have and make sure that we have adequate representation in the climate group to inform the process.
Thank you, Dr. Crandall. And that is the critical piece in all of this, is getting a very large, diverse, comprehensive work group together to inform and follow through on this process. And what we really liked about them as well, and you'll be seeing, is they're very much about transparency and inclusion from the get-go. So we're not just starting from scratch either. Like, they have their whole framework. They have, you know, things that have been validated, and also, you know, their surveys. But again, understanding that all of each institution is very different, and being able to individualize and personalize that for us and our needs and where we are. And when we get the report back, we will immediately look and be talking about the plan for that and the action plan for that, right. Not just kind of waiting and sitting on it. And, you know, as Dr. Crandall was saying, it's really very action oriented. So any comments or questions? And thank you for that summary, Dr. Crandall. Okay, hearing none. And then Dr. Crandall, you were just mentioning as well in regards to the historical report that you all, now that you're back, had started meeting to get some efforts made in that area. Okay.
I think,
thank you.
Fortunately, the white paper that we put together for the climate survey actually, I think, has a lot of that information already built. I think we can pull that.
All righty, there you go. And then that will, thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, onward to our Workforce Development Committee.
Hello, everyone. I will start us off, and then Dr. Singh will also join in to provide some information as well if we need to. You know, I think that our group is primary aspects that we're working on is a stakeholder, HSC-wide stakeholder view of our toolkit, which is ultimately not going to be called a toolkit, but it is related to faculty and recruitment and how we can provide some guidelines and best practices and resources and training opportunities in one place for folks to turn as they go through searches. We're also still grappling with where and how to understand this concept of workforce. It's large, and figuring out a place to jump into get some momentum with regards to that. I just want to also acknowledge that our group, and I don't know if the other subcommittees, we have folks who are tasked with lots of other things outside of the IEC, and I just want to acknowledge sort of the workload component of it that I'm feeling from multiple people too. And I think it's important that we name that as we look at deadlines. An important part of the workforce component is wellness. And I think that that's a piece that we've been sitting on a lot, is how do we do this work while also keeping ourselves well? So those are our updates. I don't know, Dr. Singh, if you have other things to add.
No, I think that hit upon most of the major items for us and our group as a whole. So thank you so much for going over those.
Perfect. And I can answer any questions if folks have them. Or other folks from my group. I see a couple folks on, so. We're also kind of doing like a baton slash, we have some chairs and co-chairs, but we're recognizing that everybody's energy might be that at different points our group will be operating as a co-chair as a whole. So very much value any things that they want to add.
Yeah, I like the relay analogy there, the baton analogy, and really the team effort, which. And I, really want to acknowledge and appreciate the wellness component in there as well, and the importance of that, and our really role modeling that, right, and putting it out there, and what's the reality for all of us. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Were there other committee members who wanted to add anything, or any comments or questions in general?
I just wanted to add thank you to Dr. Smart and Dr. Singh. We've had some really good discussions during our meetings, and it's been very enlightening hearing from the different programs and how people are grappling with hiring and retention, those kind of issues, and it's just been really fascinating. So I appreciate the open communication and just letting us kind of ramble and talk about different topics. So it's been very, very good. Appreciate it.
And I would just echo that thankfulness for Dr. Smart and Dr. Singh. It is a big subject as we kind of step through workforce development and starting with recruitment. And so a lot to kind of understand and work through, but I really appreciate their leadership.
Thank you, both Ingrid and Helen, for those wonderful comments. I appreciate that, and your participation and acknowledgement. Thank you. All right, we have our Community Engagement Committee.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here with you all. So we have a group that has been definitely starting to think and, to the best that we can, pull together what we know about community engagement from a historical perspective in the HSC. We're not finding that work to be very easy in the sense of, we've yet to, despite committee members in representing a good number of departments and programs on our HSC, we haven't had anyone show us a compilation of community engagement that has really been carefully, put together. We know that there is a lot going on. I think our initial sense, and I'll let other committee members chime in here, is just that there has not been enough effort, if any at all, to really strategically do community engagement. And if there was, then at a chancellor, at a Dr. Ziadonis office level or departmental level, you'd be able to easily, oh yeah, here was our 2020 report, here's our 2019 summary of community engagement. And there could be a lot of reasons behind that. I have just in the last few days been poking around a little bit and kind of found some interesting angles. I believe the UNM Hospitals has just hired a community engagement position. I saw that the Cancer Center came out, I think last week, hired a program specialist for community outreach and engagement, Yadira Aguero, who comes from the Mexican consulate. And even that the UNMH Board of Trustees committees includes a community engagement committee. There are no minutes since 2019, so I'm not sure if that's a an active committee. And also made me just kind of raise the question: does UNMH efforts is that part of HSC? I think of it as part of our HSC, but is a little different than say our programs and schools. And the one other thing I'll just raise is I don't remember if we as a committee, or excuse me, as a council, actually, JP, Dr. Sanchez sent me a reminder. So I think our committee feels it's going to be really important, particularly for the Community Engagement Committee, but potentially for the larger council as well, to include community voices. And the example would be, you know, if we do prepare that UNM has done amazing work in a certain realm with a certain community, it's, to me, needs to be validated by that community. If it's the LGBT community of the South Valley, if it's the community of Mora, New Mexico, whatever it is, it's not enough for us to say that we've done it and assume that it was successful. And so community voices are going to be really critical to holding us accountable and telling us when what we have done has fallen way short. And so that's probably going to be a particular focus for in the immediate weeks to get some community leaders engaged in our committee. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Thank you, Dr. Flake, for your leadership. I've appreciated our conversations with our partners. Everyone that is committed to the Community Engagement Committee has brought valuable insights and perspectives. As we mentioned early on, we are taking a reflective approach, definitely looking at the University of New Mexico historically and the health sciences, and thinking about all of the efforts that have focused on community engagement, from the University of New Mexico and its structure at one time having a vice president for community engagement and economic development, to our current state, thinking about all of the efforts that the University of New Mexico is currently engaged in, and thinking about how we develop an inventory of efforts. And then, of course, thinking of our vision, thinking about where the University of New Mexico is moving forward to support community engagement with regard to UNM 2040, even looking at all of the strategic plans, and then thinking about projects like the Lobo Living Room through the UNM Alumni Association, and thinking about the commitment from various presidents and leaders across the University of New Mexico historically, because there's no question that community engagement is critically important to all of our efforts. And I know that each and every one of you is engaged in community efforts in your various pathways. And so this is no doubt going to be a major effort to bring all of those highlights and historical records forward, but then thinking about current state of affairs and then our vision. Where do we see ourselves moving as a health sciences center and as the University of New Mexico?
This is Javier Rios. I'm also part of the Community Engagement Committee. And I know one of the things that we also reflected on is like thinking really, when we say community engagement, what we mean for such a big institution like UNM, and thinking like I come from a very community oriented background where I was organizing as a health educator, outreach worker, and thinking like, what do we really mean when we're engaging community? Because often when you're in a big institution, it's like community engagement means like you did this one thing together. And I gave an example of like, we staff can volunteer somewhere together. So that could be considered community engagement. You check it off the list, but thinking of things like the land acknowledgement, for example, UNM recently, I've noticed the land acknowledgement being read often, more often than I've ever seen it before. But then what goes beyond that, right? Like in Albuquerque itself, I know from community that I know personally and am involved with, there's a big movement around getting the acknowledgement of the park that's near Naka, where there's Indigenous children that are likely buried that were murdered, right, by boarding school folks. What about land, the concept of land back, things that institutions don't really want to meddle with or aren't PC or don't want to hear? Like, how are we engaging community on those issues of health and wellness to really be listening? And like Dr. Flagg said, and Lawrence, Dr. Roybal said, like, what, we're doing these things, but like, what else are we doing? And what is like the long-term engagement? Because typically when people engage community, they often, what I have found in my work is engage for a minute while the grant lasts and then it's over, right? you got funding for this and then it ends. So like really thinking about what we mean when we're trying to do this DEI work in long-term culture shifting, because a lot of folks are not engaging community on that level and have never done. And sometimes it's taboo within an institution. I used to work for the health department as well. And it was like, you're a health educator, but you know where you need to be in your office from 8 to 5. So really thinking about that and what we truly mean, like versus publishing something that says, hey, we engage community. Because at Project Echo, where I sit, we definitely do little nuggets of engagement, but that is by no means something that is like sustainable or planned or well thought out in terms of that long-term health and wellness of our communities and how we interact with them. So I did want to share that too. We had a really good conversation about all this.
Yeah, if I can add, that's phenomenal. I mean, I think the discussion that all three of you just shared just shows the richness that's coming out of the committee work. I would even say that this recording helps support your summary. Like we can take this recording, put it in a transcription device, and then you use those notes that are a part of the outline. Because once again, this is an outline. This is not a deep dive into every component and coming up with an action plan moving forward. The intent of this was a historical report of maybe even the evolution of how we've discussed community engagement. In my own experience within schools of medicine across the country is that there was a discussion of first community health, community service, and then there was a greater emergence and discussion of community engagement. And then there was a immersion and discussion of service learning. But all 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 terms tie to how we interact and come into contact with the community. It has been an evolution of terms and how we apply those terms in schools of medicine across the country, whether it's allopathic or osteopathic. This report was maybe giving consideration of how we have done that through the School of Medicine, through the School of Nursing, through the School of Pharmacy historically. And part of the reason why these terms evolved was that people thought, well, are we missing this evaluation component? And so it is about acknowledging a transformation of thought that has occurred, but that transformation doesn't stop. It will always continue, so we could do it better and better and better. So I just want to thank the group for that robust conversation, and looking forward to seeing, I've seen already some of the notes. Thank you, Anthony, for sending me some notes already. They've been really exciting. I think it's been a really nice depiction of the hard work that you've engaged in. I think, were you able to also connect with Dr. Kaufman, who has served as the AVC for community health within our institution?
We have, and again, just haven't really seen kind of a compilation of what is being done, even like within their office. So yeah, we haven't done a good job, I think, as an institution of recording in any organized kind of way what we are doing to engage community. And when you even look at like our HSC master plan, like the vision, it falls short of anything that's really measurable and something that you could call a SMART goal. So we've got some work to do, but hopefully this small committee of the bigger council is helping to push that work.
Well, you certainly are already. And as I just echo what Dr. Sanchez just said about what a great conversation, and just very meaningful, and very much appreciated what you all were sharing here with us today. And I just, I know that Fabian would like him to share some things in regards to some of the community engagement and the work being done with the hospital, and in response to some of the things that were brought up, as well as some more wonderful news about his office growing. But I'd also like to, before Fabian shares that and we discuss some specifically about UNMH2. Are there others who want to comment about the discussion we've just had in general and this concept again of the evolution of, you know, how we do or do not engage community and really embrace and truly listen and have a true bidirectional, tridirectional partnership. But any other comments about that? I know I saw as people were talking, you know, heads were nodding, and I feel like people really may have some things that they'd like to share as well. So let me just open up the floor.
The only other comment, Dr. Romero-Leggett, that I would add is the recent report by the UNM Rainforest Innovation Center with regard to economic development. I believe many of you saw the report that was released regarding UNM's impact on economic development. And I'm thinking of something similar with regard to community engagement. It's very difficult to compile, but thinking about UNM's impact in our communities, and I know no doubt the Health Sciences Center makes a tremendous impact in our various communities, not only in New Mexico, but nationally and globally.
Well, thank you, Dr. Roybal, for reminding us about that, and what I heard was quite an excellent summit. Thank you. And Dr. and Executive Director Armijo, would you like to weigh in here and also share some of the news about your growing office?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everybody. So there's been some restructuring at the hospital. Native American Health Services has been restructured and it's now under my office. So I'm overseeing, well, Tani Pecos, who's the manager of Native American Health, reports to me now, and Greg Ortiz, who is our Pueblo government liaison person. He's also reporting to me. So we're in the middle of planning the tribal leaders annual meeting in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we're busy doing that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the community engagement efforts at the hospital, because I heard Dr. Flay asking about that. And it's true, we have hired a director of community engagement. She starts with us on September 20th. She'll be here. And she will have 4 community liaisons reporting to her. Her name is Millie Castañeda Ledwith. She's not from the hospital. She's local. She's been working at Cervantes Institute for about, I think, 15 years. So she's done a lot of community work at the Hispanic Cultural Center. But she'll be joining us, and the idea with that is to have liaisons that are working with different communities. So with Native American Health being under my office now, we plan to use the 3 liaisons that are already there working with the Pueblos and tribes and nations to continue to serve in that capacity as outreach and helping us make sure that we're providing appropriate services to Native American patients in the hospital, looking at the 100-bed commitment that we have in the 1952 contract, things like that. But it is important to have representation from those communities. I think our first step is to, in 2019, we did the community health needs assessment, and that was the first time when the community was invited to come and we posted listening sessions, and there was a document that was published on that. So we'll continue to do that work through the liaisons. So it's separate from the hospital. It's separate from the HSC, but it's under HSC, obviously, but we're doing that specifically for the hospital. And we already have 2 of the liaisons hired. So they were in the business development office before, and they wanted to move under the Office of Diversity when that office was restructured. So we have 2 of the 4 liaisons hired, and we have the 2 Native American liaisons. And then I was also, is that all I was going to talk about, Dr. Romero-Leggett? I can't remember if there was something else you wanted me to mention.
I think so, because I think the other item we're going to wait till the next meeting as you got some more information. No, that's great. That was really helpful. And again, the liaisons, and then the work with your office and the Tribal Summit and the Native Health Initiative. Congratulations on that, and lots of great things happening. Lots of moving pieces.
Can I add one more thing about the Native American services, because I'm really proud of this. We trained the first Zuni English interpreter for the hospital. So that person finished the training yesterday. And what I was hoping is that she would say, hey, there's all these other people who speak Zuni that can help. And it's already happened. So there's 2 other people who will be training soon. That was huge. We're really excited about that. After Navajo, Zuni is the second population that we serve most at UNM hospitals when we look at our inpatient data. So I'm really excited about that. And then the other thing is we'll be training 2 people from Kiwa Pueblo, or they're Carrie speakers. And it's just, in the meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, CEO Becker will mention and thank Governor Pantea from Zuni and Head Councilwoman Chavez, and then Governor and Lieutenant Governor Tenorio for their support, because they're the first 2 pueblos that have allowed us to do this, because those languages, we rely on the pueblos to tell us if somebody is fluent in the language or not. There isn't a test for Zuni out there with one of our vendors. So it's been a collaboration. And this morning we presented that to the board, the subcommittee of the board that works in Native American health. And they were really excited. There's a lot of discussion about that. So we're hoping that other governors and tribal leaders will follow suit and say that they want a part of that. And I think it's something we learned, during COVID, where most of the time this community would bring a family member who was bilingual and they would serve as their interpreter. But when visitor policy was restricted and people are alone, there was nobody to help elderly people from those communities communicate. So yeah, we're really excited about that. So long explanation, but I'm really happy.
Good job, Fabian. Thank you and congratulations on that. That's really huge. And like you said, it'll be really interesting. We'll be waiting to hear, to see, like you said, other governors and other pueblos following, suit if that happens. So I think that's wonderful. Congratulations. Teresa had a great question. Teresa, did you want to ask? And maybe we have a couple minutes to have a little bit of response on that before we move into our academic development professional training group.
Yeah, and I apologize if I missed anything because I did have to step away, but as you're talking about this community reach, I wonder if, there was an announcement in the HSC communications about a new community engagement person out of CTSC. And I recall in 2018, we were part of a conversation where there was an attempt to map out community engagement from UNM with community, and literally there was somebody working on a map and trying to pinpoint where partnerships were happening. And while we were part of that work, I don't think it ever really came to fruition, and the committee has since dissolved and the person who was leading that effort has left UNM. So I'm just curious if anyone knows about that. And then in addition to that, in our work with pipeline programs, with community partners throughout the state, we also recognize heroes and AHEC individuals who are in partnership throughout the state, and sort of how does that play a role with the big picture of community engagement? I think there are many levels, but there's a lot of siloed work and not one collective place to be having that conversation. And I'm sorry, that wasn't a question.
No, but that was great. That was great information to share, and some things people may not have been aware of, like you said, and just really bringing all of that forward, forth to us was really very, very helpful. Thank you. Appreciate that. And as a matter of fact, actually, into your many of you may or may not have seen, depending how long you've been here, but at one point there was a map. There was a map of New Mexico, and everything had a symbol, right? Like Heroes was a triangle, and pipeline programs was a circle, and all of this to show AHEX and everything, right? The cancer center, everything across the state. Well, it became so busy, right? Which is great, right? I mean, that's a good thing, but you really couldn't discern things anymore. There were so many, everything's dark with dots and symbols and everything, but at some point that should actually be in the historical report too, like actually just that picture of that last map, because I think it does give you a good visual, and it was the attempt at that point, like you said, to really start capturing where are we and how are we working with communities, and where are we. So thank you for reminding us about that. And I know I saw Amy nodding her head because she was part of that and has been here, to know that as well over time. So thank you for that. I did want to, we're going to move into our academic development professional training, but did want to share a real quick shout out to Mike Nuttall. I'm sorry, don't know how to pronounce his last name exactly correctly, but he's the director of our UNM Food Services and his team, the UNMH Food Services and team. But about a month ago, the White Coats for Black Indigenous Life group and some of our residents, I believe, had noticed that there was the concern about the sale of the Sabra products, the hummus, at the hospital because it was co-owned by Strauss, which is an Israelite corporation that was known for its financial support of and participation in some human rights abuses against Palestinians, with several state and other universities and institutions had removed those products. So within 48 hours of bringing that to their attention, that was taken off the shelves and removed from across the hospitals and everything. So I really just appreciate that action and really quick response and action to that. And Mr. Needle really looking into that. And as he said, we have to have him actually, he needs to be one of our content experts for sure, but this gentleman had such extensive knowledge and just some of the many things he's done, but really he spoke to how many other products from avocados and the Mexican cartels to, I mean, he knows so much that he could really give us a nice little lesson in some of that arena that I really hadn't known the depth and breadth of things. So I'm hoping he will be one of our content experts at some point here. He's have quite impressive, extensive history, and his knowledge was amazing. But just a shout out to him and his team. Okay, I'm turning it over to academic development, professional training, and Ingrid and Allison and Daniel. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. I'll start off saying that we've been working diligently trying to pull together information from all the various programs that we were reaching out to. We did hear from some people that they felt that they had been asked these questions already, and it was sort of repeating information. So we got a little bit of that. I've been trying to be very respectful of people's time and energies being pulled in multiple different directions and trying to be able to compile this information. But in our last meeting, we were talking more about putting together, and this was thanks to Dr. Goodkind, putting together a repository of educational information that people are using in their various curricula that could be like a open access repository that people could be able to pull from, so everybody's not reinventing the wheel in their own little siloed curricular areas, but that there would be this repository where people could gather information and see what other people were doing. We could list who was champions in various curricula for DEI initiatives. So that's our next goal that we're working towards. But currently we're really focused on trying to collect as much information as we can from as many different groups related to DEI efforts in the curricula. And Daniel, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I would, quite frankly, I would really like to thank Ingrid for kind of helping us with a lot of the technology and setup and organization using Microsoft Teams. That actually has been a huge benefit to us. And Allie as well. Allie was, I'm fairly technologically inept, and she was able to even walk me through it. So thank you to both of you for that and your efforts. As far as the engagement with different programs and organizations, it's moving along, as Ingrid has mentioned. There are a lot of parallel lines of effort between all of the different colleges and communities. And so pulling all that together in the repository, we are very excited with the possibilities of that one. But again, the bigger push is going to be towards compiling all the information to provide for the report.
Thanks, Daniel. I don't know if there's anybody else on the committee who wanted to add any thoughts, comments.
Thank
I
you
just
for
wanted
that
to add,
work. Oh, go ahead, whoever was speaking, please.
all right, thank you. I wanted to thank you all for your efforts. So I wanted to mention that Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Gomez Chavez, and I serve alongside Dr. Romero Leggett on the Diversity Council. And there are several committees that are part of the Diversity Council, including Campus Climate, the Campus Climate Survey, the Diversity Curriculum Committee, and so on. And so this is a perfect opportunity for us to think about how we can develop a greater bridge between the Health Sciences Center and our branch campuses, as well as UNM overall. So yesterday during our Diversity Curriculum Committee meeting, we spoke about the diversity curriculum requirement and our undergraduates being required to take at least 3 credit hours from the diversity curriculum, and thinking about the limited number of Health Sciences Center courses that have moved through that process. So there's another opportunity this year as we move forward with our efforts to think about how we continue to make certain that the Health Sciences Center courses are being acknowledged as diversity curriculum courses. And so we appreciate this important committee and all of the other committees and the work that you're doing, and thinking about how the work that each of these committees is undertaking aligns with other efforts that are taking part in our communities across New Mexico, including our branch campuses.
Thank you, Dr. Reval. Others, comments or questions? Well, next on the agenda, we have the Hispanic Heritage Month that Dr. Sanchez and Dr. Gomez Chavez are going to speak to, but I want to take a few moments as well and just also open the floor. You know, we have several of our of course, our DI executive officers here and our at-large members who are again representing the entities across the HSC and the spectrum. And if there is anything that you would like to share, or that you would like to, you know, again, to share with all of us, or you have questions about anything, please just open the floor here for a moment to see if you would like to speak as well. Or Amy, was that you? Or
yeah, I was just saying I didn't have anything to add.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. And I think in the chat, we also saw that congratulations to Dr. Goodkind and Dr. Salas, you know, thanking them and Dr. Goodkind for her leadership as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Diversity Education for years in the HSC with Dr. Rohan Linares. And now Dr. Goodkind and Dr. Salas are the DEI co-curricular directors for School of Medicine, where they have put in 0.2 FTE for the efforts here to really acknowledge work they've been doing for a long time in that realm, but to really broaden a lot of the work that they're going to be you know, moving forward, and I know sharing with us here in IEC. But congratulations to you all as well. Very much appreciate that. And we'll have you, hopefully, again, we'll be hearing from you as well in one of our other meetings with, as you get time to kind of get your feet under you and get the depth and breadth of all that you're doing as well. Thank you. Dr. Sanchez and Gomez Chavez, as we have the last final minutes here for you.
So Dr. Gomez Chavez will be providing this summary. Thank you again, everyone who's been a part of the Hispanic Heritage Month Planning Committee. Dr. Gomez Chavez.
Buenas tardes, everyone. It's so great to be here with you all. We are about 2.5 weeks away from Hispanic Heritage Month. So the first thing is that if any of your departments are hosting any activities, workshops, please send them our way, because we are developing a comprehensive calendar. The other thing is that we've had planning meetings, and I want to thank those who have been attending alongside with Dr. Sanchez and I to bring forth a series of workshops, topics, and we're so excited because there's going to be a variety of workshops that address, from language equity to, how our Hispanic community has been impacted by COVID-19, as well as mental health issues, as well as having a celebration for Los Primeros. This will be our second year to highlight trailblazers within the Health Sciences Center, as well as within the community of individuals who've really been leading these efforts for many years. So we invite you to be a part of what we feel is going to be such a wonderful celebration. We have 2 planning meetings this week. Individuals can choose one or the other. So today at 5 o'clock and on Thursday at noon. And then I do want to mention that we have prepared a letter. We are asking for financial support because we are trying to provide either honorariums or offset some of this costs for this month's celebration. So we look forward for you and everyone to join this special month where we highlight the impact that Hispanics, Latinos, Latinx communities have had in our state, in our city, at HSC, at the UNM Hospital, and in our nation. So thank you and look forward to connecting with y'all. Gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Gomez Chavez and Dr. Sanchez. Excellent work. People, again, can reach out to you if they like to. I appreciate how many of our entities across the HSC and our community members are part of this. So thank you as we look forward to all our Heritage Months this coming year. Thank you all. We'll go ahead and end our meeting. We're at time, or I think a minute over. So appreciate all of you and we'll look forward to the work in between and talking to you next time. Thank you. Take care.